The Senate will come to order. Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues and guests in the gallery here in the chamber, would you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Majors, please call the roll.
Senators Aguilar, Baumgartner, Carroll, Cook, Crowder, Donovan, Garcia, Grantham, Guzman, Heath, Hill, Hodge, Holbert, John, Johnston, Jones, Kafalis, Kerr, Lambert, Lundberg, Marble, Martinez-Humanic, Merrifield, Neville, Newell, Roberts, Scheffel, Scott, Sonnenberg, Stedman, Tate, Todd, Ulibarri, Woods.
Here.
Mr. President.
Here. With 35 present, 0 absent, 0 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Martinez-Humanic.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the journal be dispensed with for February 29th and that the journal as approved be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted and the journal is approved. Reports of committees of reference.
February 29, 2016, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following. Senate Bill 108 be postponed indefinitely. February 29, 2016, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following. House Bill 1017 be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation. February 29, 2016, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following. Senate Bill 132 be amended as follows and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation. February 29, 2016, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following. Senate Bill 19 be amended as follows and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations, a favorable recommendation.
Senate Services.
March 1st, 2016, correctly printed, Senate Joint Resolution 11, correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 127, correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bills 99 and 122, correctly revised, House Bills 1025, 1032, 1043, and 1076, correctly re-revised, House Bills 1012, 1028, 1086, and 1125, correctly enrolled, Senate Bills 14, 29, and 31.
Third reading of bills consent calendar. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of the 3 bills on the third reading of bills, final passage consent calendar?
February 29, 2016, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following. Senate Bill 108 be postponed indefinitely. February 29, 2016, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following. House Bill 1017 be amended as follows and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation. February 29, 2016, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following. Senate Bill 132 be amended as follows and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation. February 29, 2016, Committee on Judiciary, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends following. Senate Bill 133 be amended as follows and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the W House Bill 1043 by Representative Brown and Senator Baumgartner, considering the Joint Technology Committee's authority to approve the request for a waiver of certain deadlines after monies for a project have been appropriated. House Bill 1076 by Representative Hamner and Senator Tate, concerning the status of a retired architect. House Bill 1025 by Representative Martin and Senator Tate, concerning statutory recognition that an insurance policy may be subject to renewal by an admitted insurer within the same insurance group as the insurer that issued the insurance policy.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adopt the bills listed on the third reading of bills for final passage consent calendar, which includes three bills: House Bill 1043, House Bill 1076, and House Bill 1025.
The motion before the body is the adoption of the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar. Is there further discussion on any of those bills? Seeing none, are there any no votes on any of the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1043 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder, Senator Kafalis, Senator Tate, Senator Newell, Senator Lambert, Senator Heath, with 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1076 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Jones, Senator Woods, Senator John, Senator Heath, Senator Neville, Senator Kerr, Senator Todd, Senator Holbert, Senator Scott, Senator Merrifield, Senator Baumgartner, Senator Garcia, with 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1025 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Crowder, Senator Heath, Senator Woods, Senator Newell, Senator Baumgartner, Senator Cook, Senator Hodge, Senator Kafalis, Senator Holbert, Senator Scott, third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1032?
House Bill 1032 by Representative Lontine, Senators Todd and Cook, concerning changes to the contents of a criminal summons.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1032 on third readings and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the sponsors for bringing this bill today. I was in the chair yesterday and didn't get to speak on it, but I know that this bill does a lot to increase safety on these stops where the State Patrol is pulling citizens over on the side of the road. Not only safety for us as citizens parked in harm's way, but safety for the officers as well as they stand next to our cars. Plus, it will reduce the time that you and I are in the clutches of the State Patrol by 5 minutes, and that's always a good thing when we need to get further down the road. That's not my words. That's what they told me as I walked in this morning. So, so I thank you for bringing this. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? Minority Leader Guzman, Senator Jones, Senator ULIBARRI, Senator Carroll, Senator Merrifield, Senator Hill, Senator Heath. No votes. With 28 ayes, 7 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1032 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Woods. Senator Baumgardner. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 127?
Senate Bill 127 by Senator Tate and Representative Martin concerning the repeal of the Medical Clean Claims, Transparency, and Uniformity Act.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 16-127 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? Senator Aguilar, Senator Carroll, Senator Ulibarri, Senator Merrifield, Senator Kafalis. No votes. Senate Bill 127. With 30 ayes, 5 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 127 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Crowder, Senator Holbert, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Scott, Senator Cook, Senator Woods, Senator John, Senator Marble, Senator Hill, General Order, second reading of bills. Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of General Order, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of General Orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Holbert will take the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to all the bills listed on the General Order, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
House Bill 1161 by Representative Young and Senator Lambert concerning the allocation of certain money that exceeds the total amount of all warrants issued by the state treasurer to reimburse local governmental entities for property tax revenues lost as a result of the application of a certain property tax exemption. House Bill 1241 by Representative Hamner and Senator Lambert concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Higher Education. House Bill 1130 by Representative Priola and Senator Johnston concerning changes to annual reports prepared by the Department of Education. House Bill 1042 by Representative Arndt and Senator Sonnenberg concerning an exemption from liquor licensing laws for a brewing program offered by a state institution of higher education. House Bill 1013 by Representative Garnett and Senator Marble concerning authorizing school districts to purchase crime insurance coverage in lieu of surety bonds. House Bill 1026 by Representatives Thurlow and Kraft-Harper and Senator Holbert concerning the repeal of the Department of Revenue's revenue impact accounting requirements related to a group of bills enacted in 2010. House Bill 1019 by Representative Becker Kay and Senators Jones and Roberts concerning increased authority to use broadcast burning as a tool to promote watershed restoration.
Majority Leader Scheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee adopt all the bills listed on the General Order second reading of bills consent calendar, which includes House Bill 1161, House Bill 1241, House Bill 1130 and its associated Education Committee report, House Bill 1042 and its associated Education Committee report, House Bill 1013, House Bill 1026, and House Bill 1019 and its associated Agricultural, Natural Resources, and Energy Committee report. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports on the bills listed on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee reports for those bills listed on the consent calendar. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills listed on the second reading of bills consent calendar? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the bills listed on the consent calendar. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is to rise and report. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
March 1st, 2016, Mr. President, your committee holds reports that on consideration the following attached bills being second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1161, 1241, 1130 is amended, 1042 is amended, 1013, 1026, and 1019 is amended. Passed on second reading in order to revise, placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of the report.
The motion before the body is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Is there further discussion? Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. House Bill 1161, House Bill 1241, House Bill 1130 is amended. House Bill 1642 is amended. House Bill 42 is amended. House Bill 1013, House Bill 1026, House Bill 1019 as amended, passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General Order, second reading of bills. Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of General Order, second reading of bills.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of General Orders, second reading of bills. Senator Holbert will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 21?
Senate Bill 21 by Senator Donovan and Representative Mitch Bush concerning recognition of the fourth Monday in March as a state holiday and in connection therewith designating the fourth Monday in March as Public Lands Day.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 21, and I move the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report.
To the committee report.
The committee report had two amendments adopted and added to the bill.
Is there further discussion on the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Donovan. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read L006?
Amendment L006, Senate Bill 21 by Senator Donovan, amend the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L006.
To the amendment, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill was originally laid over in state military affairs in order to find compromise language because we agreed public lands was an idea that we could all stand behind. I offered compromise language, and we spent over 27 days in a good faith attempt at acknowledging different sentiments, and language was adopted that certainly drift away from the intent of the bill, and indeed, I think from the intent of what declarative language is supposed to be. So Amendment L006 replaces the adopted declarative language with language more consistent with the drafting language, and more germane to the bill topic. It eliminates policy ideas that were within the declarative language and ideas that do not fit under the bill topic. So I ask for an aye vote. I think it keeps the bill more genuine to the intent of celebrating public lands and not politicizing the idea.
Is there further discussion on L006? Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the truth is, haven't had an opportunity to look at this full-page amendment. I would ask for a senatorial 5 for me to sort through this, if you wouldn't mind, sir.
Senate will stand as senatorial 5.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee lay over Senate Bill 21 to the end of the general order, second reading of bills calendar.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 21 to the end of the general order second reading calendar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Senate 21 will lay over to the end of the second reading of bills calendar. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of Senate Bill 123?
Senate Bill 123 by Senator Lundberg and Representative Singer, concerning free access for high occupancy vehicles, high occupancy vehicle, and high occupancy toll lanes on state highways, and in connection therewith prohibiting the Department of Transportation and the High Performance Transportation Enterprise from requiring a vehicle owner to use a switchable transponder or other device in order to travel in a high occupancy vehicle on such a lane without paying a toll.
And the committee has come back to order, or will come back to order. Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee lay over Senate Bill 123 to March 7th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 123 to March 7th. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 123 will be laid over until March 7th. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of Senate Bill 62?
Senate Bill 62 by Senator Marble and Representative Becker J. concerning modifications of the regulation of veterinary pharmaceuticals.
Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I Colleagues, we had a routing situation with Senate Bill 62. It needed to go to the Committee on Appropriations. So at this time, Mr. Chairman, I move that Senate Bill 62 be referred to the Committee on Appropriations.
The motion is to refer Senate Bill 62 to the Committee on Appropriations. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 62 will be rerouted to Appropriations. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 74?
Senate Bill 74 by Senator Crowder and Representative Dorr, concerning mail ballots and in connection therewith allowing electors to opt not to automatically receive mail ballots and directing the Secretary of State to purchase 24-hour ballot drop boxes and surveillance cameras for each county in the state.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 16074 forward.
And Senator Crowder, I believe there's an Appropriations Committee report as well. Senator Crowder.
Yes, sir. Okay, the committee report was all appropriation issue, and it seems to be settled, and actually it was voted on in a favorable motion.
The question before us is the adoption, or excuse me, is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report to Senate Bill 74. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically what this bill does is allow a voter to opt out of automatically receiving mail ballots by completing a form to the statewide online voter registration. A voter who has opted out may choose to resume receiving mail ballots through the process established by the Secretary of the State. Basically, Part 2 of this actually authorizes the Secretary of State to use federal Help America Vote Act funds to purchase 24-hour mail ballots that are basically lit within each county. And I think it's a good, decent bill. We've had some issues in rural Colorado, and those issues basically surrounded or connected to the Postal Service. You know, we've had ballots that have been mailed out roughly 2 weeks ahead of time of the election, and due to the I'm not going to say mistake, but the failure of the Postal Service to deliver those to the county on time has been compromised. We've had elections in rural Colorado that have actually, you know, by the ballots that are being returned, we had one county that had 200 ballots that were not returned to the county in a timely fashion. So I felt that this is something that was needed to correct this situation, and I do believe it's an issue that you know, I think it needs to be looked at, and I think it's a situation where a lot of people want this. So I do not believe that it does jeopardize the integrity of the vote. You know, and I think at that point in time, Mr. Chair, I think I would just move this bill forward and ask for an aye vote.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, members, I ask for a no vote on this bill. This won't solve the problem, in my opinion, of what was just expressed here about the postal office, because people right now have the right to go vote at a voting service center, at a polling place. That's the beauty of this system. It meets all those needs. Somebody can go vote at a polling place, somebody can cast their ballot and put it in the mail, they can cast a ballot and put it in a drop box, they can cast a ballot and take it to a voter service center, they can go to a voter service center, change their registration, their party affiliation, well, within time, but their address, and they can go register to vote at these places. But the fact is, if people don't trust the mail, any part of the state, they can go vote at a service center. That's there. That option is there. You do not need to have them opt out. The opt-out will just confuse things. I'm sure you've had this experience at doors explaining to people how the system works, especially before we need in law to do that. The Secretary of State can divvy out that money already. We don't need to tell them to do drop boxes. And if you're a cash-strapped county, you get a drop box, that's just the start of your cost, because you have to have that within view and surveilled, basically. In Louisville, they're putting it at the police station because of that very need. In Superior, they're putting it right by the town hall. So the drop box is just the start. It's great to have the drop boxes, But we don't need to have it in a bill. So really what we're talking about here is confusing the system more by having people say, I don't want a mail ballot. I just want to go vote at my polling at a voter service center. Well, folks, they can do that now. They can do that now. And the Postal Service, the issue that was mentioned here, has nothing to do with that. You can go and vote at the voter service center. So I ask for a no vote on this bill. It doesn't make much sense to me. I think all it'll do is cause confusion. And here we come up to one of our biggest elections, a presidential race, and we're creating confusion. I think that's a bad thing to do. I ask for a no vote.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, there might be some confusion involved, but it has nothing to do with what the bill is going to create. And so I believe it's important to come down and explain this so as to eliminate any confusion on what the bill is doing and what the bill is addressing as well. A couple of things. One, concerning the drop boxes. This bill is actually by the request of the Secretary of State, who realizes that he needs the statutory authority to ensure that more counties do have these drop boxes in place. Some have been able to set it up, particularly the larger counties, but I've spoken to the Secretary of State directly on this, and he said, look, there's some of the smaller counties that just haven't had all of the wherewithal, and he believes that he needs more statutory authority to really work on this. Now let's talk about the other component to this bill, which is the allowing a voting citizen to say, do not send my ballot through the mail. If a citizen has concerns with the integrity of their ballot, this is their ballot. This is the ballot that's being sent to them to vote in the election. If they have concerns with that going through the U.S. Postal Service, and I'll give you an example for myself. We've gone to a P.O. box rather than a mailbox out front of our house because it's too close to the snowplows and sometimes it gets knocked over. Mail is not secure if it's sent to a mailbox in front of my house. It's it's 800 feet away from where my house is. It's out on a very busy highway. And in the wintertime, about half of the time, if I keep a box up, we just gave up a couple of years ago, actually, and there's no mailbox there. So we go to a P.O. box, so there's a little more security there. But for all of my neighbors that still have their boxes out there, when it comes time for the ballots to be dropped by, it's far too insecure, and that's the concern that many citizens have, is to allow them, to simply allow them to go to their county clerk and say, don't send me a ballot, I'll come get it at your vote centers. It makes every bit of sense to simply allow citizens to choose what works best for themselves. I'm actually deeply concerned with any recommendation for a no vote on this bill, because it's telling the citizens in the state of Colorado, we don't trust you to be able to figure this out when it comes to your ballot. We don't believe that you should have the prerogative of determining where that physical ballot of yours is and how it is delivered to you. It makes every bit of sense, and there's no confusion whatsoever there, because the citizen has to go to the clerk and say, I choose to not have my ballot sent through the mail either direction, in the unvoted form sent to them or the other direction back to the clerk. This is a good bill. This is a bill that makes every bit of sense. If you're concerned about citizens having the ability to vote their conscience, you know, today is the day of the caucuses. It's really the first step in our election process here in Colorado. On this day in particular, we should say yes to the citizens of the state of Colorado. We trust you to understand what your ballot's all about and to make your decision for how you want your ballot handled. This is a good bill. Please vote yes.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Friends and colleagues, we heard quite a bit about this in my district on the last election. The northern area of Gilpin County, where people couldn't actually go to a drop box. And the only drop box, I believe, was in Central City, in Blackhawk Central City area. So to try to drive down that highway, those of you who understand the people that live west of Nederland, trying to make their way over an hour drive, not very convenient at all. And the fact that they wanted security, and many people want the opportunity to wait till election day to actually be able to drop their ballot. It's an issue with the mail in the outlying areas, how that mail gets routed. Sometimes it gets routed to other mail drops and then comes back into the county. It's not received for several days. There's always an issue with late ballots, it seems. And this is something that the people in Gilpin County asked for. And I believe it's good for the rest of the state of Colorado. It provides an opportunity. It doesn't provide less opportunity, but it provides more fairness and more opportunity for those to participate. So on behalf of those constituents that I have in Gilpin, I urge an aye vote on this bill.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do have a few comments in opposition to Senate Bill 74, but since the integrity of voting and our caucus system and our caucus process today was brought up, I want to make sure that the people of Colorado know what's happening, or more precisely, not happening at half the caucuses tonight. So everyone knows 7 o'clock tonight.
Senator Kerr, could you please speak to this bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm speaking directly to this bill as a previous senator spoke to caucus and how caucus fits in with this bill. So thank you, and I will. So Senate Bill 74 is probably the least necessary piece of legislation, certainly that I've seen this session and perhaps in many sessions. It does not do anything which cannot already be done. We've heard that voters, many of whom might be going to caucus tonight, we've heard that voters who don't want to receive a ballot in the mail or want to vote in person, that this bill is for them. Well, guess what, folks? Those people can already vote in person. That is their right. Within the laws of Colorado, any person, any registered voter can go vote in person. You do not have to use the ballot that you automatically receive in the mail. You have that right. This bill does not change that. The second part of the bill about drop boxes and technology and cameras watching those drop boxes, guess what? That can already be done. The Secretary of State can already help counties out if they need additional drop boxes, which in my county, Jefferson County, where we have over 500,000 people, Jefferson County is by population larger than the state of Wyoming. And this bill would have the Secretary of State give my county only one additional drop box and cameras to watch that drop box for over 500,000 people, where there are some counties that have less than 500 people in them. And yet they get a whole drop box for that number of people. Well, again, the underlying point here is that nothing in this bill does not do anything. It does not create a new right. It does not create a new system. It simply says that the people of Colorado can continue doing what they've already can do, and the Secretary of State can continue doing what the Secretary of State already does. So when we talk about legislation that doesn't do anything, Senate Bill 74 is the precise example that we should be using. There are words in place, there are ideas it talks about, but nothing in this bill is anything new. Nothing in this bill starts a conversation that people can't already be doing. So with that, I ask for a no vote on Senate Bill 74.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to belabor this too much, but this is an important issue, and there does seem to be some confusion. But again, it's not what the bill will create. That will actually clear things up. But what I've heard from this microphone appears to me to be quite a bit of misunderstanding as to what the circumstances are and what the bill will do. I'm reminded of a couple of election cycles ago. I was at my local vote center there in Berthoud, going through the process of obtaining my ballot to vote. And a rather remarkable thing happened right beside me. There were a couple of lines, and the gentleman who was up the front of the line beside me, he said, "I've come to vote. This is who I am." And the lady he was talking to looked at her computer and said, "Oh, you've already voted." And the guy said, "No," and it was quite obvious. He was flabbergasted to be told he had already voted. And he protested. He said, "Look, I moved here several months ago. I have never voted here before, but I did register to vote. You can see I'm registered to vote. I know I haven't voted." And she said, "Well, I'm sorry, but it looks like you voted." And so she then said, "Oh, but don't worry, you can vote provisionally." And so he kind of quieted him down, and he got his provisional ballot. I know what they did. They went back, if they looked at the provisional at all, and said, "Oh, he'd already voted. Throw the provisional out." That guy had his ballot stolen from him that year, and there was nothing we could do about it. This bill ensures any citizen who has a concern that that might happen to them because it was sent through the mail, that it not be sent through the mail. As simple as that. There is a very real reason why this legislation is necessary for the integrity of each and every ballot in the state of Colorado. And we leave it up to the citizen, the individual registered elector, to decide, do I want my ballot sent to me through the mail or not? And it's an opt-out. It's affecting no one except the citizen who says, "I do not wish my ballot to ever be in the mail, either in its unvoted or its voted format." This makes every bit of sense, and there should be no confusion. What this creates is greater integrity and safety for each and every ballot that's voted in the state of Colorado. Please vote yes on this bill.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of this bill. This session, I became an expert to some degree on voter service centers and voting behavior. And one thing I want to call your attention to, members, is the need for drop boxes. What we've learned is that our voters really appreciate drop boxes. That's what's most often used. And surprising to me, our rural citizens don't have the access to drop boxes like many here in metropolitan Denver have. I'm not going to present a graph. I'm going to maintain a safe space here for the opposition party and not having to see quantitative information. But I do want to call your attention that in a rural county, a drive to deliver a ballot is a serious barrier to access that is quite different than some of the claims made earlier in this session. So again, voters appreciate drop boxes. Rural voters especially are some of the most hard-working, conscientious citizens. They are most affected by the mail system because of their location, and they're most susceptible to problems in the mail system. They need this enhanced access to voting, and I urge a yes vote on the bill. Thank you.
Senator ULIBARRI. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read L002?
Amendment L002, Senate Bill.
Senator ULIBARRI.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L002.
To the amendment, Senator ULIBARRI.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, you just heard one of our members here talk about the need for additional access to drop-off locations. And the funny thing about this bill, Senate Bill 74, that there are two components. One is opting out of receiving a mail ballot, and the other is increasing access to mail ballot drop-off locations. And so what this does, it actually says, let's consider the most important question, which was just raised by the good senator from Arapahoe County, and that is, should we increase access to voter participation? Should we have more drop-off ballot locations? Yes, I agree with that. Something I said before in previous conversations, but that shouldn't be at the expense of making our voting system more confusing, more burdensome, and more challenging for folks to get. So let me talk about why this amendment is important and necessary. It takes out the language of the opting out of the mail ballots and just keeps whole the provision of increasing access to additional drop-off locations. Why is it confusing to have a potential opt-out language in this bill? It will set up multiple confusing systems so voters aren't actually having one standard way to vote. You're saying, well, if you're opting out of receiving a mail ballot, you're opting out of receiving a mail ballot. In fact, that's not true. Colleagues, in committee, this came up, and it is very, very clear. We have different requirements for different types of elections. So for a countywide coordinated election where you have congressional races and you have local races and you have the U.S. presidential, because guess what, today's Super Tuesday, we're talking about democracy, let's talk about all of these things that may be impacted. During those coordinated elections right now under House Bill 1303 that we passed in 2013, every single registered elector in the state of Colorado receives a mail-in ballot. Under this proposal in Senate Bill 74, what is presumed is that someone could opt out of receiving a mail-in ballot. However, there are other elections that are conducted regularly as a form of business in the state of Colorado, including special district elections. So you think about your water board or dirt district or your sanitation board or rec board. All of those special districts may choose and would not be obligated under this bill, Senate Bill 74, to opt out of sending mail-in ballots, because in fact they are not coordinated county elections. Why is that important? Our county clerks, the ones who are responsible for managing our coordinated elections, they're the folks who actually manage and maintain the ballot drop-off locations. They're the folks who have the access to the voting machines, the HAVA equipment. Our special district elections are governed under a different section of law. That's important to note because, in fact, you cannot opt those folks out of receiving a mail-in ballot. So the only purpose of the opt-out provisions in Senate Bill 74, the ones I'm proposing to eliminate with L002, would create confusion because a standard voter, someone who is like every other Coloradan who's focused on their main priorities, making sure their kids have a roof over their head, making sure that their family is taken care of, not thinking about the nuances of election law, may say, I've chosen to opt out of a mail-in ballot. But then they received a mail-in ballot for their Highland Hills Rec election about who's going to be on the board of Highland Hills Recreation District. That's a special district in my Senate district. And they say, oh, okay, I received a mail-in ballot. Apparently I was signed up again, so I'm part of the mail-in ballot system. Okay, so then they are waiting for election day, they're waiting for election day, they're waiting to receive their ballot, although they had opted out. They received a ballot for a special election, so they're presuming that they're going to receive a mail-in ballot, and they never receive it. Come election day, comes and goes, and then they didn't participate because we've injected confusion into the system. I think that's incredibly important for us to acknowledge that in the course of this session, we're considering proposals in a presidential election cycle that could confuse voters about how they participate. Let's go back just to last year, 2014, actually a year and a couple months. 2014 election, Colorado was rated one of the most secure and most accessible voting systems in the country. We had the 4th highest voter participation in the country because our county clerks and those election administrators here in the state of Colorado have done a phenomenal job ensuring that every single eligible elector has an ability to participate in our election system. And now we're saying with Senate Bill 74 and other Senate measures before us, let's confuse that process in front of one of the most important elections our country has seen. Let's infuse pandemonium. For anyone who's ever done election work, if you've been an election judge or if you've been an election watcher, you know that most voters depend on us to make the process very clear, very secure, and very accessible. And now we're saying, well, let's add in this opt-out provision that would confuse some folks and let some people do this at the expense of others, and someone may choose that and not know what it means and then receive mail-in ballots for certain elections and not for others. That means we don't have one standard process. It means we don't have one clear, secure, and accessible process for folks to consistently use. And that's what voters have asked of us, especially in managing our public goods. Make it accessible, make it secure, make it clear. What they don't like is confusing bureaucracy. Senate Bill 74, with the opt-out provision, is confusing bureaucracy. Because you have different requirements for different elections, it makes it very challenging for folks to understand about at what time will I receive a mail-in ballot or not. At what point can I go cast my ballot? That kind of confusion in advance of an incredibly important presidential election, again, I'm just going to acknowledge today is Super Tuesday, that if we don't acknowledge that we're injecting confusion with Senate Bill 74 at this time, it is disingenuous to the folks who want less bureaucracy. Less red tape. What they want is a very clear, accessible, and secure system for everything we do, especially voting. So L002 strikes out the opt-out provisions and keeps whole the increased access to the mail ballot drop-off locations. It's something that's very simple and helps to clarify, ultimately, that we have a system that is designed for all eligible electors to participate in a way that is accessible and confusion-free. So I urge an aye vote on L002.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, the question before us right now is the amendment that takes out the opt-out provision for receiving a ballot through the mail. Mr. Chairman, I really have a lot more confidence in the intelligence and the good judgment of the voters, the citizens of the state of Colorado, than may have been expressed here recently at this mic. Understand, it's an opt-out. If someone chooses not to exercise the right that this bill would create, and I really speak to the bill in the context of the amendment because the amendment guts the bill, really. It takes a major portion out of the bill. And so, you know, if you're going to vote no on the bill, then vote yes on the amendment. But if you believe this legislation holds merit, that it's important for the people of Colorado to have the option of choosing how their ballot is handled, whether or not it's to be sent through the mail or not, then it makes every bit of sense to vote no on the amendment and then support the bill. I heard the word secure used multiple times, and that is what this legislation is all about, and that is what this amendment will remove, because it requires, under the current system, if you are a registered voter in the state of Colorado, you will be sent your ballot through the mail. And this is simply saying, if you don't believe that's the best course for your ballot, then you can tell your clerk, the county level, city level. By the way, the language is quite broad and specific, and gives you the option to choose where you think it is best for yourself. But it's up to the voter. What are we afraid of? Trusting the voter. Imagine that. What a unique idea. Senate Bill 74 is a good bill Amendment 2 is a bad idea. Vote no on Amendment 2.
Senator Ulibarri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to talk to this because I think it's important that we just acknowledge the reality of the confusion that can come up when someone receives a mail-in ballot for one election and not for another, or two mail-in ballots for different elections. A leading candidate for the U.S. Senate here in the state of Colorado, who's a registered Republican, who also was a former member of the House, received two ballots and claimed, oh my gosh, look, I have two ballots that I could cast. Upon further investigation, that House member, the person who's highly qualified, an attorney, someone who's now running for the U.S. Senate, former House member, received two ballots and called voter fraud. However, that individual, leading candidate for the U.S. Senate, who will probably be making his case today on Super Tuesday for election, that candidate claimed voter fraud. Upon further review, one was a special district ballot, another was a general election ballot. Two separate mail-in ballots for two separate elections, causing enough confusion for someone who's highly qualified enough to run for the U.S. Senate to be confused. Now let's talk about the average voter. And let's talk about the average voter who may receive one mail-in ballot in this election and not in another, and what that means for them. We need a clear, consistent, and secure system. Now let's talk about security. There was a question about our security and our system. Our Secretary of State came and testified about this, that they have not prosecuted anyone under our current system, that there are multiple redundancies and protections to ensure that there is no fraud. That they can't point to one single instance where they've been able to prosecute someone for voter fraud. I will say there was only one instance that was incredibly concerning to me that I heard of in committee, and it was when a resident of northern Colorado came to us and said, I received other people's mail-in ballots, and I was instructed by a senator who works in this chamber to open those, to violate federal law, to open those mail-in ballots. If a person receives someone else's ballots, they should never be instructed to open those mail ballots. They should never be instructed to go through those. They should remit them back to the Secretary of State's office or to the county clerk's office. They shouldn't be instructed by sitting senators to open those mail-in ballots. Thankfully, our voters trust and respect our voting system. There's been no proven case from the Secretary of State of voter fraud. They haven't prosecuted anyone for it because we have a secure system, one that is nationally recognized and held up as a model by the National Conference of State Legislators. That's what we need to focus on, and that's what we need to do here, is make sure our system is very clear for the voters, accessible and secure. That's what we have. Why would we try and roll that back?
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's get back to the fact that we have an amendment before us that needs to be defeated. And quite frankly, I'm not going to try to get drugged down any other directions that I think maybe, Mr. Chair, you need to understand or keep your gavel handy. I'll just put it that way. We are talking about security of the ballot. This is a very significant issue. And what seems to be coming into the discussion as well is the intelligence of the voter. Well, I have a great deal of respect for the voter, and I believe that we need to give them the options that they should have and not lock them into a single system. You know, I'll just put it this way. Let's vote down this amendment. Let's vote for this bill. Let's secure the voting system for the individual voter as they see best. And let's trust them to understand what's happening. I wasn't sent down here to be their father to tell them what to do. I was sent down here to represent their interests. And I believe that I have that responsibility to give them the authority to determine where their and how their ballot is handled. This is an important piece of legislation, and it should become law, but not with this amendment.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess I'm looking at it a little differently than my friend from, my colleague from Loveland does. I don't think this has anything to do with judgment. I tend to try to operate my life on the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid principle, and a lot of us have a lot of things going on in their lives. You know, showing how old I am, going back, I used to love to go to my neighborhood polling place and cast my ballot, meet all my friends. Usually had neighbors behind the desk taking my signature and doing all the processing the ballot. I loved and looked forward to doing that, and my guess is a lot of us did. But we've gone beyond that. We've now basically got mail ballots in for all of our elections. And this bill basically says, okay, let's give people a chance to opt out. Well, I don't know if you're like me, but I just got some things in the mail, had to again go back and renew my seats for the Colorado Buffaloes. Well, they changed the system. I couldn't remember whether I had done it or not. I had to make a call yesterday to confirm whether I had actually done it. The fact of the matter is, we're all going to get mail ballots. Then we have a choice. But if you opt out, now you've got to try to remember if you've opted out or haven't. And as my friend from Adams County, my colleague from Adams County said, you're going to get a mail ballot on other elections, on special district elections. So now you're throwing confusion into the process. I think this, to me, violates the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Because now you're going to have to try to remember whether you opted out or not. Did I get a ballot? Did I send it in? I think we're adding confusion to this, which is the last thing we want to do before a presidential election. Let's not do this now. If we think we need to do it, let's do it next year after a presidential election when we've had time. To do this now, I think, adds confusion. It has nothing to do with people's judgment. Nobody here is questioning the judgment of our voters, but we're basically trying to react to just how we all are. We got a lot of things going on in our lives, and trying to remember whether you opted out or not, to me, is not and is violation of the keep it simple, stupid. I think this is an amendment that we should pass. I think we all agree that we ought to have more mailboxes, ballot boxes. That's part of this that we can all agree on. But I think this to me is adding a confusion, and we should pass this amendment.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also ask for a no vote on this amendment. You know, when we talk about confusion, I'm not sure what that means, but I think the people of the state of Colorado understand what it means. This is about control. What brought this about was actually a town in southern Colorado where 200 votes went out in the mail to be delivered to the courthouse. They didn't make it due to the lack of the effort by the Postal Service. And what we're trying to do is straighten something out. But the primary reason we're doing this is to give the control back to the people instead of us taking the control from them. So when I hear words like confusion and pandemonium and one town gets 500 boxes, that's amazing. You know, I think about what the people of the state of Colorado want. And, you know, I'm going to fight for my district, but the reality is this is what the people want. This is not about confusion. You know, what we're trying to do here is create an illusion of confusion. And I think the only ones that are confused is us. But I'm adamantly, you know, not in support of this resolution, and I would, you know, ask for a no vote.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a yes vote. This will cause confusion. I have absolutely no doubt. People in center can go to a voter service center and vote and have their ballot counted. Then they avoid the whole issue if they're concerned about the mail. That's the beauty of the system. It has all sorts of options. You can vote in person, you can change your registration in person, you can register in person 2 weeks before the election, no less. You can mail, you can drop off, you can do all those things. This will cause confusion. I'm thinking of the town of Erie, which runs its elections at an odd time. and it's the same as I think Frederick and Firestone do the same. And I'm always kind of interested in reading the paper about an election at a weird time. And this isn't a special district like Mountain View Fire, which is that area. So you could be getting 3 ballots in that house, and you opted out of the general election one, but not the others. And so then you get your mail ballot, and you go, what the heck's going on? You call your county clerk. They say, oh, it doesn't matter. It count. In this case, you do the mail ballot, and then you get confused, and on election day, you're scrambling around saying, why didn't I get a ballot? I'm getting a ballot for 2 other elections. This does cause confusion. And I think people are intelligent. It's just this isn't their priority, and they don't know how complicated the system can be if we do this. So I ask for a yes vote on this amendment.
Is there further discussion on L002? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L002. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it, and L002 is lost. Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 74? Senator Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I just want to talk about a few of the issues that have been brought up here this morning. First, we've heard you can go to a voter service center and vote. And that is true, but if your ballot has already been put in the mail to you and then you don't have your ballot and you go to the service center to vote, there's where the confusion will come in. I've also heard from a colleague in Jefferson County that I want to give you a different Jefferson County perspective. This doesn't do anything which can't already be done. I disagree. It allows citizens to say, no, I don't want my ballot mailed to my home. I want to opt out of that. That's what this bill does. This is a good bill. And the reason that it would only add 1 drop box to Jeffco is because we have plenty of drop box places in Jefferson County. This bill is really designed by the Secretary of State to get a drop box in those counties that don't have a drop box. Jefferson County doesn't need 500 more. We have a lot. 1 more won't hurt anything. But for those counties that don't have a drop box, this is a good bill. I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 74.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 74? Senator ULIBARRI. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read Amendment L003?
Amendment L003 to Senate Bill 74.
Senator ULIBARRI.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L003.
To the amendment, Senator ULIBARRI.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill title here is concerning mail ballots. Since we've been talking about voter access and security of our election system, I want to inject an important conversation here, which is that currently our mail-in ballots go out and they are not prepaid postage. In fact, we ask folks to pay 73 cents or $1 or $1.25, depending on how many ballot measures have qualified that year and how big the ballot is, to put on their mail-in ballot and send it back. Requiring individuals to pay for that cost seems burdensome, and it looks like a barrier to voting to me. So what L003 proposes is that the Department of State shall pay for every mail ballot, and that it should be prepaid postage, so folks can drop them back in the mail. And with what was proposed in this bill, we want to increase access to folks being able to participate. This is a way that we can have more people not being concerned about finding the right postage, the right 1-cent stamp to get to that 77-cent postage weight for the mail-in ballot this year or whatever it may be, but in fact that we bear that cost since this is our democracy. Colleagues, I think this is an important amendment that ensures that our voter system remains secure and accessible for all, and that there isn't a cost to participate if folks choose to vote by mail.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a no vote on 003. This is not about postage, the cost of postage. The cost of postage has never been an issue. This is about, in rural Colorado, what they do when they pick up the ballot in your mailbox, they send it to Denver, they postmark it there, the postage is already paid, and that's where the breakdown is. It was not redelivered back to the courthouse. So the reality is it's not about the cost of a postage stamp. It's about the integrity of the vote. So I'm urging a no vote on 003.
Further discussion on L003. Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L003. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it, and L003 is lost. Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 74? Senator Ulibarri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not offer my last amendment. I acknowledge that there seems to be a desire to keep this bill as it is, but I just want to raise one important issue that was raised in committee that I think is incredibly important, and that's about increasing unfunded mandates to our counties. And so what was said by one of the county clerks who testified in opposition to Senate Bill 74 is that although it provides for additional drop-off locations and just the surveillance equipment, it does not account for the technological costs of maintaining the servers, the video backup feed, and all of the additional technology. What was stated in committee by that one county clerk is that it's about $60,000 a year to maintain their system, and now we're asking that system to be increased exponentially across the state. Okay, so if we're going to do that, we can't just say, well, here, we'll buy you a camera, but not the servers to maintain the video feed, all those other pieces. Senate Bill 74 is an unfunded mandate on our county governments because it requires new surveillance technology and no additional costs for the additional, or no additional support for the additional costs that are incurred by that technology. I had an amendment to that, but it sounds like Senate Bill 74 will move forward without any amendments, which is unfortunate, especially for the counties that have to bear that unfunded mandate. So again, colleagues, I urge a no vote on Senate Bill 74 and hope that you stand with me today on Super Tuesday to ensure that our election system remains secure, accessible, and very, very clear for voters, and that you vote against Senate Bill 74 because this muddies the waters.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find it ironic or incredible to call this an unfunded mandate when all it's doing is creating more options, not only for the individual voter, but for the county clerks. This is not meant to force county clerks into setting up these drop boxes. It's to help them get the job done. This is not an unfunded mandate. This is a bill for freedom, really, in so many ways. It's a good bill. It should move forward. It really does create a greater process for security for the voter and for the ballot. And that's what the whole subject of it is about, is let's ensure that the people of Colorado can vote, and they can vote in the manner which they choose, and they can be more assured of the security of their ballot, even if they choose to not have it sent through the postal system, as well as providing more opportunity for a secure drop-off point for their ballot. That's one of the things that has really been rather surprising out of the new system we have for voting in Colorado is the number of people who choose to take their ballot and physically drop it in the box themselves. This is to ensure that that can happen as well. So you can choose how you get your ballot, and you'll have greater choice on how you deposit your ballot with the county clerk. It's a good bill all the way around. Senate Bill 74 should be supported. Vote yes.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 74? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 74. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 74 is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1148?
House Bill 1148 by Representative Sias and Senators Roberts and Cafalas concerning the oversight authority of the Health Insurance Exchange Oversight Committee with regard to policies that affect consumers proposed by Health Benefit Exchange.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1148 and the Health and Human Services Committee report.
To the Health and Human Services Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The amendment in HHS was to substitute for the word regularly at least quarterly. We also expanded who would receive some additional information from just the public to the public and the committee. And by committee, we mean the Oversight Committee, Legislative Oversight Committee over the exchange. And then we also asked for an expansion or a highlighting of board actions that would have additional transparency are those that affect consumers. I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on the committee report. Seeing none, the question before us is the Health and Human Services Committee report to House Bill 1148. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, colleagues. House Bill 1148 that I'm very honored to be working on with my good friend from La Plata County. The purpose of this bill is to provide for greater oversight, greater public scrutiny of the health insurance exchange oversight, the health insurance exchange. Both of us are members of the Health Insurance Exchange Oversight Committee, and this particular bill would provide for greater scrutiny of the Connect for Health Colorado in three particular ways. One is that it revitalizes the original stakeholder technical advisory groups, and these groups were established to give guidance on policy matters being undertaken by the exchange. A second provision of the bill is to require a public notice and a public hearing on all policy decisions affecting consumers. So what we're really trying to do here is to make sure that consumers have a voice and that in matters that affect consumers, they are informed and they can engage in those policy discussions. The third major provision of House Bill 1148 is that it directs the Connect for Health Colorado Board to create a process with public input for staff to know which types of decisions would fall under these processes to the level of public scrutiny that we are trying to achieve in this legislation. For those reasons, we ask for your support of House Bill 1148. Thank you for listening, colleagues.
Is there Senator Roberts?
Thank you. And the only thing I'd add is this passed out of HHS unanimously and has no fiscal impact, but it would increase transparency and be very helpful to the Legislative Oversight Committee as well. So we ask for an aye vote.
Excuse me, Madam President Pro Tem. Is there further discussion on House Bill 1148? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1148. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1148 is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 21?
Senate Bill 21 by Senator Donovan and Representative Mitch Bush concerning recognition of the fourth Monday in March as a state holiday and in connection therewith designating the fourth Monday in March as Public Lands Day.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For folks watching at home, I believe that we were on L006. And so I ask for an aye vote on L06. Again, this,
Yes, when the bill was laid over, we were on Amendment L006 to Senate Bill 21.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to cover our bases, I move L006.
To the amendment, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This replaces the declarative language with language more consistent with the overall drafting language of the bill. It also eliminates policy ideas within the declarative language and ideas that don't fit under the bill topic. The reason that I feel this is important is because under guidelines for drafting legislative, declarative or legislative intent statements, there are about 9 guidelines about what declarative language should or should not be included in a bill. And I feel that some of the stuff that was added in committee drifts away from these guidelines, specifically including statements that would create an action otherwise not by substantive law, and some statements that we have not been able to verify for accuracy, as well as trying not to imply that there is any ambiguity presented by the declarative language, and that we keep it precise and accurate and fit to the bill title. So I ask for an aye vote on 006 to try to keep the declarative language in line with the guidelines for drafting legislative declarative language. Thank you.
Senator Donovan. Because we laid the bill over, would you please move the bill again?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, I move SB 21.
Thank you. And L006?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We are to L006, which is an amendment to the committee report from State Veterans and Military Affairs to Senate Bill 21. Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I rise in opposition to L006. What this amendment tends to do is in J of the amendment, it talks about public land benefits with comprehensive land use with focus on historic use, stewardship, and public access. So I want to talk about public access for a little bit. What the amendment talks to about public access is that we have more public access, or this will let us have more public access than we have now. Over the past 15 to 20 years, we have lost more public access to the public lands in the state of Colorado than we have gained. Also, it talks about the management of national forest and the wildfires. And what we found here in the state is when we let the federal government, the BLM, the United States Forest Service, try to manage those lands, and that's basically their job to do, is to manage those lands. But when they shut access down to these areas, it makes it very hard to fight wildfire. It also makes it very hard to allow certain types of grazing and so on and so forth to these public lands that are supposed to be multi-used. So and I don't know if I can, I guess we're talking to the committee report, but it talks about the Coloradans have demonstrated for over a century the ability and balance of the preservation and conservation of these public lands. So the people that are using these are very conscious of what we need to do to conserve those lands. This amendment here, which I might add was basically offered in State Affairs, although I wasn't there, but talking to the committee members, this same amendment was offered and failed. And this amendment that's on this bill was unanimously passed out. So I'm going to ask for a no vote on L006.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L002? Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The declarative amendment that did pass was not passed unanimously out. And the amendment, and the reason I'm offering L006 is because this was an attempt to find that compromise between the two sides of the aisle. It does talk about public access. I think we can agree that there are areas where we need to continue to talk about public access. And there is also other language in here that talks about public lands benefit when all levels of government cooperate. So I just wanted to clarify there that this amendment is compromise language between the amendment that was not unanimously adopted and me trying to seek a middle path that has declarative language that reflects the concerns of the committee, but is also responsive to what legislative language is supposed to be by the guidelines that are given to our drafters and to us.
Thank you, Senator Donovan, for pointing out my error. It is L006. Further discussion. Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I just want to quickly reiterate that this bill came out of committee unanimous as it is now amended. The amendment that is being offered, L006, is so very similar to L003 that was offered in committee and defeated. I would urge you just to defeat the amendment and let's move forward with recognizing a public lands day as it came out of committee. Ask for a no vote on the amendment.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, members, I ask for a yes vote on 006. This is supposed to be aspirational language, where we want to be. The committee report talked about sweetheart deals. Now, do we really want to start listing sweetheart deals in one of these? Because both sides will have fun, but it won't be constructive and it won't be aspirational. In a constructive way. I don't see how you can have a problem with that. The motorized recreation can show up, the preservationists can show up, and they probably will disagree. And the land managed agency usually kind of runs the thing down the middle, just like we do here on compromises. I agree that the Forest Service and the BLM haven't done a great job managing these lands, but I don't agree for the same reason. I think our beetle kill epidemic is far worse because we suppressed fire starting in 1910, 10 o'clock rule. People who study this would agree with that, scientists. So I think we can agree to disagree on some of these things, but the fact is, this is balanced language and what we aspire to be and what we aspire to do, and not gotchas, which I had a problem with the committee report amendment. So I ask for a yes vote on this. This is a constructive way to go forward. And by adopting this, we can move this thing forward and look at all of the different aspects and interests and balance those. And that's what this is about. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there further discussion on L006? Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As my colleague said earlier, these amendments are very similar, but there's one critical difference, and I hope that my colleagues in this chamber will support this. Under the guidelines for drafting number 6, it specifically says we should not include language, those are my words, but let me quote directly now, should evaluate whether the statement is promising something on behalf of the state that could be used as a basis for a lawsuit against the state for failing to meet that promise. So now let me go to the two areas of the declarative language that we now have that I'm concerned about what this means if we pass it. And that's why I'm hopeful that you will support L006, because it removes these two specific implied promises. One, that the General Assembly, that federal agencies and the President should consult with the state and local elected bodies, including the General Assembly, before designating new monuments. This is now an implied policy that we would have to follow through on, but it's just in the declarative language. This is not an appropriate place for this type of idea or policy to be couched. Another one goes on to say, Coloradoans would be well served by reform and greater legislative oversight of the current federal regulatory process, wherein the diverse vital interests of Coloradoans are too often not adequately represented in the adjudication and settlement of federal regulatory issues, resulting too often in, quote, sweetheart consent decrees between plaintiffs and federal agencies. Again, my concern is that we are going against basic guidelines for drafting legislative declaration. And then I will point to that much of that same language is included in S006, but removes some of the implied legislative policy that does not belong in legislative declaration. So that's why I ask for your support of L006. As previously said, they are very similar amendments. They have the same intent. They talk about the same topics. They use some of the same words, but they move away from possibly opening us up because we have promised something on behalf of the state that could be used as a basis for a lawsuit against the state for failing to meet that promise.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L006 to Senate Bill 21? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L006. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it, and L006 is lost. To the bill. There is another amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, would you please read L007?
Amendment L007 to Senate Bill 21 by Senator Donovan. Amend the
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move L007.
To the amendment, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was hopeful that L006 would find that sweet spot where we could address some concerns that were brought in committee and find a pathway forward supporting some ideas that I think all of us that have public lands in our districts believe in. But since that idea was not supported by the chamber, I offer L007. L007 removes the declarative language that was added in committee. It returns the bill to the just original concept that passed out of state affairs unanimously on a 5-0 vote. It refocuses the bill on just being a celebration of public lands and not a political piece with mixed messages. And so I ask for your support of L007 as it makes the bill true to just celebrating public lands, creating a day that all of Colorado can stand behind while removing the language that was added that goes against the guidelines for drafting legislative declarations.
Is there further discussion on amendment L007? Senator Baumgardner. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a no vote on L007. As aforementioned, discussions earlier talked about Coloradans having input on the public lands, and we're not trying to make this state versus the feds. We're just trying to make this a public lands day and celebrate basically the beauty of the state of Colorado for everybody, and just ask for a no vote on L007.
Further discussion on L007. Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I understand this correctly, then we don't believe that Coloradoans will benefit from 3 levels of government in federal, state, and local government systems working in greater harmony. We also don't believe that Coloradoans of all races, ethnicities, occupations, and lifestyles continue to derive multiple benefits from traditional, long-standing, multiple-use management. We don't believe that either. We want to take that out. Members, if they want to make it political, we can make it political, but that's not what this is about. This is about making a public lands day. A bill that came out of committee 5-0 with that amendment on it, with those amendments talking about how important it is we all work together. Ask for your no vote on the amendment.
Senator Kerr. Members will please refrain from applause. Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I rise in support of L007. And I want to make sure that the folks who are watching at home, our vast audience of thousands that are watching at home, know what the debate is right now. And the language has been said at this microphone about what certain members' beliefs are or not. So when bills are drafted, when bills are first written, some bills have what's called declaratory language. It is language that puts in some aspirational ideas about what the bill is about. Not all bills have this. Bills do not have to have this language. In fact, it's usually put in certain bills to kind of clarify and narrow down the intent of the bill sponsor. But bills do not have to have this language at all. And because we seem to have come to some impasse here about what the declaratory language should be in this bill, why don't we just remove it? Why don't we take the impediment? Why don't we take the thing that is blocking all 35 of us from agreeing on celebrating Colorado's public lands? Why don't we take that small little impediment out of the way? It's not absolutely necessary to the bill. The actual law, the actual celebration of Colorado public lands will happen exactly the same way if this language that we've been having the debate over is taken out. Nothing in the actual bill itself changes. It's just the opportunity that we've had in this chamber to politicize this bill, which has been stated, it did pass out of committee unanimously based on the intent, on the sponsor's intent, original intent of the bill. But it's obvious that there's disagreement over this extra language, which we can take out, doesn't impact the actual law, which at the end of the day is what our constituents have elected us to do, is to come down here and debate good policy, not to come down here and debate particular words and declaratory language. Let's just remove the language that's causing the problem. It won't impact the actual bill at all. Please vote for L007.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I was looking at this declarative statement, and it says, Coloradans believe, Coloradans recognize, Coloradans believe, Coloradans would be well served. Well, since we are talking about doing what Coloradans believe, I'd like to read from you very quickly a poll taken by the Center for Western Priorities in its Winning the West campaign that reveals when Colorado voters head to the ballot box, a candidate's views on public lands and the outdoors can help swing undecided voters. According to the poll, which oversampled voters in 3 Colorado swing counties, Arapahoe, Jefferson, and Larimer, and oversampled Latino voters, a passion for an outdoor lifestyle and the access to the state's outdoor spaces is #1 reason an overwhelmingly majority of voters gave why they love Colorado. But let me get down to the beef of the matter. Looking towards the general election, and both sides, Democrats and Republicans, should listen to this. Colorado voters by 54 to 33% margin favor a hypothetical Democrat candidate with a balanced approach to public lands, who supports protecting land, water, and wildlife while providing public access and managing energy development in a responsible way, over a Republican candidate who supports state control over national public lands, selling off public lands to balance the budget, and expanding oil and gas development. Conversely, by a 45 to 44% margin.
Senator Merrifield, could you please come back to the bill, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to point out that the Coloradans believe that we should not politicize this issue, that they believe in protecting public lands, and according to this poll, what I'm saying is absolutely correct.
Is there further discussion on L007? Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. L007 provided a chance for us to have some dialogue, certainly the dialogue that I've been hopeful for, of us being able to find some common ground, because I do believe that public lands is an idea that we can all stand behind. So there's a forthcoming amendment. With that being said, I withdraw L007.
Is there further discussion on L007? Oh, excuse me. L007 has been withdrawn. We're back to Senate Bill 21. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L008 along with Senator Baumgartner.
Senator Baumgartner. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, L008, and we've discussed this with the bill sponsor, we go to the committee report lines 10 through 15.
Senator Roberts, if I could ask Mr. Majors to please read L008.
My apologies. Thank you.
Amendment L008 to Senate Bill 21 by Senators Baumgartner and Roberts, amend the State Veterans Military Affairs Committee report dated February 22, 2016, page 2, strike lines 10 through 15, substitute paren N. Coloradans would be well served by reform and greater legislative oversight of the current federal regulatory process. And
Senator Baumgartner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I move L008.
To the amendment, Senator Baumgartner.
Okay, and what this amendment does is it strikes lines 12 through 15 that talks about the sweetheart consent decrees and replaces it with Coloradans will be well served by reform and greater legislative oversight as a current federal regulatory process and goes on.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L008? Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do consider this a friendly amendment and appreciate the senators offering it.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L008 to Senate Bill 21. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 21? Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to take a moment to talk about what this bill is doing and why I'm proud to offer it, because we have been spending a lot of time talking about the committee reports. So now that we're to the bill, I just want to share some thoughts about how fortunate I feel to have grown up in Colorado. I spent my summers hiking in national forests and my winters skiing in those very national forests. I went on Jeep trips with my grandfather to explore canyons and find the elusive rock art tucked around the next bend. Every fall, I knew it was fall, not because the leaves were changing, because my family loaded up the mules and we escaped the built world for a week during elk camp. I chased grasshoppers on public lands as my dad wished for a trout to bite. I slept under the stars countless nights on a BLM back road or in a subalpine mountain meadow. And I watched the sun rise over the prairie where at times you couldn't tell the pink tan of morning from the very land I was walking on. These experiences on public lands shaped me and are the Colorado I know and love. To honor the importance of public lands to our state and to her residents, I offer SB 21, which designates the third Saturday in March as Public Lands Day. It recognizes the significant contributions that national public lands within Colorado make to wildlife, recreation, the economy, and to a Coloradan's quality of life. This is an idea that every Coloradan can get behind. In fact, recent surveys done by the Outdoor Industry Association and Colorado College found a majority of Coloradans from both major parties support maintaining protections from our public lands. I believe, too, that this is a uniquely American idea, that land should be set aside not to belong to one person, but instead to the collective good. It's a foundational feature of our state. We're lucky to live in a Western state that protects mountains and plains alike for access for all. When many of us think of our public lands, I'm sure we immediately picture a place special to us. Maybe it's where a marriage proposal took place. Maybe it's that crazy night of a campfire with friends, an epic summit attempt, or maybe it's you can picture your child discovering what's around the next bend of a trail. But we also must remember how important public lands are to the economy of our state as well. Communities across Colorado depend on mineral gas extraction, grazing permits, and timber sales on public lands also support critical aspects of our Colorado way of life. These too are uses of our public lands. Communities rely on access to rivers and mountain bike trails to build a vibrant summer tourism economy, and public lands support our state's economy. We would be a different state without the diversity of our public lands. Establishing an annual Public Lands Day is a way to encourage every Coloradan to get out of the house or office, get away from the city, and enjoy the biggest backyard one can imagine. Or perhaps we'll create a spirit of volunteerism around Public Lands Day. to where you could volunteer with a local trail crew, or maybe just pause and be reminded of the beauty of our great state. To celebrate our public lands is to celebrate Colorado and our Colorado way of life. I'm a proud Colorado native for many, many reasons. But every time I look out my window and I see the mountains, I am particularly filled with pride and reminded how lucky I am. Today, I ask for your support of SB 21, which came out of committee unanimously, to create our own Public Lands Day, to pay tribute to our lands, to champion the democratic idea of access to all of our beautiful lands. And as Colorado moves future-bound, this day will remind us of our greatness, everything we are, were, and can be. I renew my motion for SB 21 and respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I, too, rise in support of Senate Bill 21 as amended. I've talked about this before, but I came to Colorado as a park ranger at Rocky Mountain National Park. Had the pleasure of being there for 3 seasons. Before that, I worked in Canyonlands in the Maze, and I also worked in Yellowstone National Park. So very, very fond of national parks. It's the public lands in my district are very important for all the reasons that the bill sponsor mentioned. However, the introduced version of the bill was, for me, a little too rosy. There are challenges with our public lands, and I think our public land managers and those who are in the field would be the first today to say so. There are continual funding challenges coming from Washington, D.C., but there's also been some policy decisions made at the D.C. and regional level that have really complicated and handcuffed the people on the grounds from applying good science in terms of land management. So it's not just a matter of putting up fences or putting boundaries around land. It is active management in many times, and even when it's a wilderness area, as population pressures increase in the state of Colorado, we can't ignore that impact on public land. So I appreciate the work on both sides of the aisle, both the Republicans and the Democrats, in trying to find a way to celebrate public lands, but to do it with a realistic lens applied to it, because there are some changes that are needed, and it needs to be all of us in the effort. So I thank the bill sponsor for bringing the bill, for working with those who had some additional language to put in there, and I ask for your support for Senate Bill 21.
Senator Jones.
To wake you up, I have a quiz, members. What is the peak on our Colorado corridor? No, it's Longs Peak.
Senator Jones, if you would please direct your conversation through the chair.
Mr. Chair, did you know what peak was on the Colorado corridor?
No, sir. Would you please tell us, Senator Jones?
Oh, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's Longs Peak, and you can go up towards Bear Lake in Rocky Mountain National Park, get off of Glacier Gorge, hike up Glacier Gorge Trail, and you can see this view about a mile and a half in. And you go by Alberta Falls. It's absolutely stunning. This is our brand in Colorado. When we had a thing to put on a quarter, we put on a peak, Longs Peak, probably my favorite peak in Colorado. What's the second quarter, Mr. Chair? Do you recall what that is on the second quarter we had?
Please share with us, Senator Jones.
It's the Great Sand Dunes. So again, we celebrate a national park, which used to be a national monument. And that's who we are. I mean, we all have our stories. I could go into mine. I won't do that to you today. But the outdoors and public lands and the ability for the regular person to go out for free or hardly anything, to enjoy, to rejuvenate, to recreate, to recreate, we're known for, and we're so lucky to have. And that's why it's so good to have a bill like this to celebrate that for ourselves. There are other days like this, but this one is for Colorado, and we should do it. It means a lot to us emotionally. It means a lot to us economically with the recreation we have and the tourism we have in the state. And for that reason, I ask for a yes vote on this bill, and I'm proud to be part of that.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also very proud to be a co-sponsor of this bill. And Colorado is my chosen state. My father moved us away from Colorado when I was a child, and then every chance he could get, he brought us back. He missed and loved Colorado, and he taught me what it means to be able to fish and to hunt and to hike and to climb in public free access to public free lands. And I moved back here to Colorado as fast as I could, and I didn't come because of the skyscrapers or the paved streets or the operating sewage plants, etc. I came because of the mountains and the streams and the trails, and I'm proud to call that my heritage of Colorado. So I'm really thrilled that this bill is here. I wish I could say it as beautifully as the sponsor did, but go Colorado.
Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also rise in support of Senate Bill 21. The bill is about public lands. Public lands is very important to the people of the state of Colorado. You know, people talk about how they love Colorado. Well, I love Colorado too. It's not my home state. It's not where I was born. But you know, once you come here, I can't express the feeling that I had when I dropped down off of the pass into the valley where I live now. It was home. It was home. It was a feeling that I can't really explain other than that I had always been here. Like many of the Coloradans here, I love to hunt and fish. I think it's a big part of our state. As far as conservation of the resources go, you know, as a rancher, we are conservationists. We have to take care of the land and make sure it's productive and make sure that we take care of it, because most people that ranch or farm for a living knows that if you destroy that land, then you lose in the long run. It is multiple use. It's for biking and hiking and horseback riding, and people should enjoy it. You know, every time I sit on the back of a horse out in the mountains driving cattle around, just to take and look at the splendor of this state, to see what we're doing as Coloradans, taking care of this beautiful state, it's something we should all enjoy. So again, I rise in support of this bill. Thank you, the senator from, let me see, where's she from? Senate District 5, and I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 21? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 21. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 21 is adopted. Majority Leader Shuffle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
March 1st, 2016, Mr. President, your committee hold previously reports under consideration of the following tax bills being the second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 74 is amended. Senate Bill 21 as amended, passed on second reading in order to engross, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1148 as amended, passed on second reading in order to revise, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 123 is amended, laid over until March 7, 2016, and takes place on the counter. Senate Bill 62 referred to the Committee on Appropriations.
Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of the report.
The motion before the body is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, are there any no votes? Excellent. With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Senate Bill 74, Senate Bill 21 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1148 as amended, passed on second reading, and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 123 is amended, laid over until March 7th, and retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 62 referred to the Committee on Appropriations. Consideration of resolution. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of Senate Joint Resolution 11?
Senate Joint Resolution 11 by Senator Grantham and Representative Wilson concerning discouraging the lease of the CSP2 facility in Canyon City to the federal government.
Majority Leader Shefflin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate lay over Senate Joint Resolution 11 to March 3rd.
Good song. The motion before the body is to lay over Senate Joint Resolution 11 until March 3rd. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. SJR 11 will lay over until March 3rd. Either Senator Todd or John Denver owes the body, let's see, Mile High, 5280, and it's 5280 week. $5.28 and a zero. Consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar. Mr. Majors, would you please read all of the appointments on the consent calendar?
Member of the College of Vest Board of Directors for term expiring on July 31st, 2019, Patrice M. Henning of Evergreen, Colorado, reappointed member of the Board of Trustees for the Colorado School for the Deaf and the Blind for term expiring July 1st, 2019. Brent C. Batron of Centennial, Colorado, a Democrat, appointed member of the State Board of Human Services for term expiring March 1st, 2017. Dennis Edward Swain of North Glen, Colorado, served as member of the public on occasion by the resignation of Catherine Ann Silver in Lakewood, Colorado, appointed member of the State Board of Health for term expiring March 1st, 2017. Matthew William Van Auken of Colorado Springs, Colorado, resident from the 5th Congressional District and an unaffiliated, and occasioned by the resignation of Betty B. McLean of Colorado Springs, Colorado, appointed members of the Colorado Energy Research Authority for terms expiring July 1st, 2019. Jeffrey Paul Ackerman of Denver, Colorado, reappointed. Mark N. Sarangelo of Lafayette, Colorado, appointed.
Majority Leader Sheffel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate confirm the governor's appointments listed on the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar, which includes a member of the College and Vest Board of Directors, a member of the Board of Trustees for the Colorado School for the Deaf and the Blind, a member of the State Board of Human Services, a member of the State Board of Health, and members of the Colorado Energy Research Authority.
You have heard the motion. Is there further discussion on any of the appointments on the governor's appointments consent calendar? Seeing none, are there any no votes on any of the appointments? With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Patrice Henning is appointed as a member of the College Invest Board of Directors. With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Brent Batron is appointed as a member of the Board of Trustees for the Colorado School for the Deaf and Blind. With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Dennis Edward Swain is appointed as a member of the State Board of Human Services. With 35, oh, I forgot these. That's for the last three. For the member, with 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Matthew William Van Auken is appointed as a member of the State Board of Health. With 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Jeffrey Paul Ackerman and Mark N. Sarangelo are appointed as members of the Colorado Energy Research Authority. Co-sponsors. Excellent. Message from the House.
March 1st, 2016, Mr. President, the House has passed on third reading and transferred the advisory statutes, House Bills 1168, 1163, and 1232. The House has passed on third reading and transferred the advisory statutes, House Bill 1005 is amended, House Bill 1236 is amended, and House Bill 1231 is amended. The House has passed on third reading and returns here with Senate Bills 66 and 8.
Message from the Reviser.
March 1st, 2016, we herewith transmit without comment House Bill 1163, 1168, and 1232 without comment as amended, House Bills 1205, 1231, and 1236.
Announcements. Senator Newell? Mr. Majority Leader, see, we're all waiting here. We just expect this now.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the absence of any further announcements by Senator Newell or anyone else, just a reminder, colleagues, tonight is caucus night, so I know you're all anxious to head for your villages, and which means we will not be back on the floor until 11 a.m. tomorrow, consistent with the House, working in concert with them. So with that, Mr. President, I move the Senate adjourn to 11 a.m. Wednesday, March 2nd.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will be adjourned until 11 a.m. Wednesday, March 2nd.